Thank you very much, and glad people are enjoying this as intended. I'm having a fabulous time. So much insight. Thank you, Liz. Some really insightful stuff there as well. So I'm going to talk to you about a topic that has been kind of going around in terms of our setup for quite some time, and that's the idea of the customer experience superhero. And I'll come on to who they are, where we see them, and what are the traits of the superheroes throughout the course of this session. They are hidden, and we'll kind of explain why that is. And it is the right time for the superhero to kind of step forward. And I will reference the current climate, but this is a more enduring piece than that. And we want to also just highlight some of the ways in which they're making a difference. So I've been practicing customer experience way before it became popular. When I was told products were built and customers bought them, and was asked to leave premises if I thought any differently. So over the years, I've managed to recognize that my belief system was always correct, and have been very fortunate to develop that with some really wonderful people over the course of the years. Taking me to my current position, where I'm CEO of Clientship, which is an international customer experience practice, both here in Iberia and in parts of South America as well. Now, I want to just pause for 1 second, because it feels really superficial talking about customer experience superheroes, when actually the true superheroes are the fabulous people of the NHS in the UK and no doubt health services all around the world. So I'm not kind of, undermining the reality of who the real superheroes are when I'm kind of talking about the CX superheroes. But it is very relevant to talk about the NHS superheroes in the context of customer experience, because they, despite the fact are probably the most important people in our country at the moment, are getting a pretty miserable experience themselves. We see lots of examples of organisations who are treating these key workers as an opportunity to be exploited. A very good example there of a situation which we're all aware of, which is that the car parks get charged to the nurses and the doctors as much as they do to the patients and those using them to commute to the cities. So be very mindful of that. With that in mind, what we wanted to also reflect was the fact there's some really good organisations out there. You're starting to see organisations, if they're set up correctly with their customer experience, then they're actually making the right decisions. Customer experience should be an enduring strategy, whether there's a crisis or it's about celebration. And actually, some of the examples are wonderful. And we've mentioned this a few times in terms of the fact that the memory muscle will be deep. We'll remember these organisations, the good and the bad, for the decisions that they actually made. If they've got the right starting point, if they're set up to fulfill the customer's lives rather than the customer, and I'll come on to that later, then the decisions they make could be wonderful. And they're having to make them on a very quick basis. If you're interested, Customer Experience Matters, it's out there at the moment. Feel free to sign up, and every day you'll get a batch of great, wonderful inspirations from companies who are doing just some fabulous things out there. Back to the main topic, the superheroes, the CX superheroes. Now, I mean, customer experience could be at the top table, demonstrating alongside trading, alongside operations and alongside marketing and everyone else, that it is a superior model. It provides a superior return, both in terms of bottom line, but also to society, which is a point I'll come on to with customer experience. But we're not there yet. Now, it is evolving, but it's very much in the space of kind of, fringe and fun at the moment. And I think it's an consulting table that showed that customer experience is considered to be the most exciting business opportunity. Now, exciting is not a word Chief Financial Officer or a risk assessor wants to hear. They want to hear sound and safe. And we've got to be very careful that we present customer experience as great fun. And that really is not something you want to bet your mortgage against. Now, what it does mean, if you look at the other image there, is quite often what you have to do is to get customer experience to break through. You have to do interesting things. We've built a complete gaming system, which is about making a difference, where you get lots of people involved, and within about 45 minutes, you learn the fundamentals of customer experience principally and recognize that you're all responsible for delivering it. But we are moving towards a place where it becomes more fundamental. We're seeing regulators underpinning incentives and penalties based on how well customers are treated. And we're also seeing a recognition that perhaps some of the ways in which we've assessed success are slightly outdated. So we've got different measures. Customer experience effort is seen as sort of 8 times more successful than customer satisfaction, and other measures like experience quality, which actually account for 90% of all decision making. So we're moving in the right direction, which is really, really healthy. But if you were to go to your colleagues and ask them about their qualifications, you find we've got many chartered institutions out there for different disciplines. If you try and find yourself a higher education course in customer experience, it's still not quite broken through yet. So we're not a mainstream business discipline. So you do need a little bit of vanguard behavior to ensure that customer experience does peek through. And I think probably this is one of the key worries that I have, and it's the way in which organizations think about customer experience. The company and the customer experience are looking to improve their relationship, so they develop customer experience as a way of achieving that. They bring in the employee, and the employee experience needs to be improved, so they're engaged and they will deliver a great customer experience. They measure that against a particular outcome, and that feeds back into the company. But on the right-hand side, we've completely missed the fact that actually what the company should be doing is to make improvements and betterment to the customer's world. The customer's world, the customer exists within their communities and their society. And those sorts of impact will actually then deepen that relationship. But there's a barrier there. And I've sat in many journey workshops where the limitation of what we're going to map is very much the relationship between the customer and the company. That is changing. And I think the current crisis is really demonstrating that organizations do have the capability to make an impact to society through their customer experience and not just their customers. Why do programs fail? Well, we've heard some information on this already. We do a lot of work with Dr. Professor Phil Klaus. He's conducted quite a number of studies over the course of the last decade or so. And the 3 main reasons that organizations are failing with their customer experience is that they're measuring the wrong outcomes in the first place. They have a lack of rigorous touch point management, so don't actually understand which particular touch points are most important to their customers. And also senior leaders present but don't practice customer experience management. And I think what we have seen is that you do need superheroes in order to break through this and start to get some traction in the organization. Now, the idea of the superhero came from something that I saw many years ago. And it's a very, very simple demonstration that when you actually put the customer's world at the heart of your thinking, it completely transforms your customer experience from putting the customer at the heart of the experience. And if you'll allow me, I'll just play this very quick video to demonstrate that.
9-year-old Jake was told there were heroes on the way. A team of superheroes rappelling down the side of Blank Children's Hospital in Des Moines, waving to those little heroes inside.
Look at, he's got his spider web.
Dad Colby Allen holding his 10-month-old son Boone, touching the glass hand to hand with Spider-Man. The masked men are from Larry's window cleaning service in Des Moines.
To see one of their favorite people come flying into their very room and give them that big smile.
Captain America, Jesse Schwartzvertraber, waving hello. On the far left, that's Batman, John Newton. The Flash, Jesse Howard, flashing a smile.
The way they light up once they see us, it's just awesome.
And the parents tonight, thankful. One last wave, the next call awaits for the window washers who are America strong.
We need more superheroes. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
So what I really like about that is it's an existing asset that's looked to see what it is trying to fulfill. It's not about cleaning windows. It's about giving an outlook to the young children in the hospital. The children want to be outside. And everyone around the table has gone, this is a better outcome. And that's the fundamental shift that we need to see in customer experience. If your customer puts their thumb up and says, I'm happy, but everyone else around the table is not, that is not customer experience. The employees, the communities, the society, the partners, the competition, believe it or not, everyone around that table should actually say, wow, this is better than what we had before. That's progress, and that's an improvement to customer experience. But it's so simple when you see that video, just what we actually have to work towards. There are great superheroes out there. Greg Reed, I'm sure everyone knows Greg Reed and a fabulous story at HomeServe. So if you take HomeServe with their boiler repairers, and we forget that quite a few years ago, they were getting massive fines and were going out of business. They have an incredible appreciation of their customers' lives. And there's a very well documented story, but I'll share it anyway, around one particular boiler engineer who went to an appointment, found the poor elderly lady on the floor, got into the house and gave a CPR and brought her back to life. And when that was found out about and made its way back through to head office, Greg insisted that everyone take a day off and become CPR trained, so that it never happened again. And his boiler engineers could make sure that if they found themselves in that situation, there wasn't that level of anxiety, they were able to deal with it and make a real difference. And that's what they do. The superheroes out there are striving towards a better society for all with their customer experience. Now, there are lots of them out there. Phil Klaus is for me one of those particular individuals. Rather than just taking his many years of kind of a well-awarded academic understanding of customer experience, he's now put it into a complete certification program, and I think it's the only one out there for kind of frontline agents. So level 1, if you're a call center agent, or you're an engineer, or you're work in a retail environment, then actually you should understand the fundamentals of customer experience and get that qualification as well towards it. What he's kind of identified in all of the learning he's got is that only 3 out of 100 organizations actually get to where they need to get to in terms of their customer experience. So what we're doing is we're empowering more people to succeed. That's what superheroes do. They bring that confidence to other people. What we also will then move towards is the forever strategy for customer experience. And that means really understanding what matters most to customers' lives. So you take that model from earlier and you recognize your starting point for any organization, reason for being, is to make a difference, to make a positive difference, either to take something that wasn't working so well and make it better, or make an improvement based on the market conditions. So the model becomes quite straightforward. The customer's world will exist within the greater society and the communities that they inhabit. And the organization, it's there to improve outcomes. It's there to, and it can use its customer experience and its employee experience, but it must make a difference to the customer's world, not just to the customer. And there are many examples of companies doing that. It's a company called House, who actually work with EDF, and they're able to put monitors onto elderly people's cupboards, and they take the read from the kettle, which is switched on at the morning, and the trigger between the electricity being switched on and the monitor going off then sends information down to relatives and to medical staff to say that individual is up and they're about, and they don't need to worry so much about them. Those sorts of small There are a number of conditions which are really awakening, though, the CX superheroes to think differently and come out and produce a better outcome for all. And I'm just going to take you through 2 or 3 of those now. We've got a podcast on this, Experience Superhero podcast, which people like James Dodkins, who you're going to hear from later, has already appeared in. We kind of class him as a superhero in the context of influencer because of the work he does. What we have found is that the timing seems to be right. The growth of customer experience is at the point where superheroes are coming through. Now, it's important to sort of recognize that, as any other kind of discipline, customer experience is of the moment. And where it will go next, well, we believe it's customer purpose. You'll view organizations and you'll assess them in terms of the purpose that they bring to society. It's really important to recognize, though, that when you come into the marketplace, say, for instance, First Direct back in the 90s, they were delivering service. That's their focus. If you come into the market later, now you've got Amazon, Checker Trade, they're delivering growth, whereas organizations like Uber and Netflix, they're fixing the broken things that weren't there before, that weren't working so well before. They've got to think about where they go next. The challenge with those organizations is that the things that they went before them, so service went before Uber, products and commodities went before First Direct. We as consumers expect those. They have very little value. So if you're an organization coming into the marketplace now, experience is really expected from you. So where it, as I mentioned, is purpose, is thinking about the purpose the organization is to fulfill in society. So any company, any startup coming in now, if it's thinking about fixing a broken, as we see with a lot of startups, it's not going to be good enough. They've got to be able to deliver a great customer experience and actually make a real difference to society as well. The way in which we transact has changed fundamentally in every single sector. It doesn't matter which one you look at, it has changed, and technology has a large part to play in that. It's really accelerated how we do business these days. And superheroes, I think I said really early on, I think it might have been Claire Musker who kind of said you need to adapt, and it's absolutely right. You need to adapt. We did a study with a recruitment company and looked and saw that the reality is if you're starting a customer experience strategy in an organization, the team that begins it will not have the required skill set as being the team that kind of matures it and takes it on to the next level. It evolves, and we as individuals need to evolve to be able to cope with that. The other consideration is that we're in a global economy. It may feel like we're shut in our homes at the moment, but actually it means that experiences from all over the globe are bleeding into different organizations, whether it's sort of, the technology from Japan, the very collective, collaborative approach to customer experience development that we find in Scandinavia, or the very emotive, empathetic approach that we find quite often in North America. All of these things are becoming aspects that get brought into different customer experiences across different organizations. We've heard a lot about feedback, and Chloe's piece on feedback was wonderful earlier, so thank you very much for that, Chloe. It's really insightful. And this is the rocket fuel for CX Superheroes. What we got to remember is that, though, we have to look at it slightly differently. We get a lot of unstructured data out there as well as structured. We mentioned, Hannah mentioned about the number of organizations out there that provide feedback. And we did a global review for PlayStation in terms of finding the right feedback provider. And kind of the long list was sort of 60, 70 out there. I mean, it's a decent field now. And there's a lot of unstructured data out there as well through third-party platforms such as Trustpilot, etc. Collection of the data and the analysis of the data is commoditized, really. What you need to be able to do with that information is prioritize it effectively. And then really importantly is action it. So customer experience and voice of the customer managers get little value out of knowing how to collect or how to analyze or how to report. Where they really get value is what I can do with that information. And we've popped in there a little customer superhero logo for one of the particular platforms where their whole focus has been built from the back to the front. So they focus on building action plans. In their platform are many, many examples of best practice, how you solve problems. And whenever an issue is identified, it's date stamped onto your customer feedback approach, and you can measure the change that your improvement has made. So you can report back just how commercially effective your customer experience improvement is. And as I say, there's a whole host of best practice ideas in there. So you really could be self-sufficient and become very action planning focused. Also with feedback, it's an engagement strategy. I mean, the water industry is a really interesting sector to look at. Heavily regulated, no competition. You can't switch your water company in the UK. So the organisations have really invested heavily in needing to really engage with their customers and understand, are they fulfilling against their current and their future expectations of them? So it's not so much a case of let's collect data, let's do stuff with it. It's a really long program, goes over a number of years, figuring out how do we engage, what will that engagement mean, what do we do with that information, and how are we moving things forward. So really see it as very much a strategy. And the superheroes out there kind of doing the analysis have the capability to stretch themselves from that point of collection all the way through to action planning, rather than just being pigeonholed as being one end or the other. So when it comes to then the superhero, what we found is there are 6 key characteristics to superheroes, and each of those 6 characteristics have 4 distinctive elements. So there are 24 real points of difference that you see in CX superheroes. Now, me and my colleagues, we found ourselves quite trained at this, and when we meet individuals, we can kind of recognize which one of them they are. But the 6 are the visionary, the translators, their designers, their resolvers, engagers, and their governors. Now, it's quite a broad church, and it takes quite a while for you actually to become a superhero, because there's an awful lot you need to be learning and demonstrating. But let me give you an indication of what kind of a visionary superhero would be looking like. So the superhero, the visionary superhero will understand some really key questions. 1, how do you value customers in your organization? It seems a pretty straightforward question, but actually what we find is that most organizations can't answer that. Do you see the customer as a target? Do you see the customer as a transaction? Do you see the customer as a relationship? Now, it may seem an obvious question, but when you start to interrogate it, organizations aren't able to actually pinpoint how they define the value of the customer. When you then move to the second question, which is where do you invest in your CX? If you see your customer as a relationship and you're investing everything in the transaction, the point of purchase, then actually you've got a misaligned customer experience from the start. There are 25 different customer operating models that you can approach. And organizations like Ryanair are very successful because they see the customer very much as a contract, and they focus all their attention on the transaction. There's no waste. They don't spend money on customer experience because there is no customer experience. Other organizations get it so wrong. They spend a lot of money on building a relationship, but actually all their focus is around that transaction. And it's a real misalignment. And in that instance, they're over-investing in their customer experience. So it's a fairly straightforward model. If you can understand where your value is of how you value customers and where you invest, it allows you to recognize where you start. But as an exercise, we rarely find any organization collectively can answer that correctly. Once you've understood those particular dimensions, the other 2 questions that the superhero can answer is knowing what matters most to their customers. Now, satisfaction is not something we look for. Satisfaction is kind of an outcome of all the things that matter most to us. And this is a study that goes way back called EXQ, which identified that actually there's 300 things that drive our decision making. So to ask one question is just, it doesn't work. You can actually ascertain from 25 questions 90% of what matters most to customers. And once you understand that your customers have a different set to your competitors, you can start to identify where your point of difference is versus your competitors. You can also start to identify the things that don't matter to customers at all. And the amount of times we find organizations investing in those areas, it's incredible. If you stop doing stuff in those areas, you won't lose any business. All you'll do is add to the bottom line. What's really important is to make sure that resources are aligned to those priorities. If you find out that reward me for my loyalty is not important and you have a loyalty program, you may well find that you're over-investing. ASOS famously pulled their loyalty program and had about 200 questions on it, but that was all from their millions of customers. Other organizations stick by their loyalty program only to sort of discover that it really didn't affect whether customers stayed, bought more, or moved to competitors. So that's kind of the key things in terms of visionary. So kind of getting to the point of wrapping up now. The promise of the CX superhero is to inspire others, to improve what was there before, and to make a positive impact to society. And it's really important, you know, when you're thinking about designing your customer experience, to ensure that you have those at the heart of what you actually do. I've got a very quick case study here on an organization that we've associated with. It's delivered that in abundance. It's UCL Accommodation, based down in London. Not many years ago, students were campaigning against the cost of the accommodation. Spent a lot of time understanding what mattered most to their students and developing a suite of really important initiatives to arrive at the point where in December of this year, they were awarded the Student Accommodation University of the Year, who actually have completely gone from one end to the other. We heard earlier about the idea of Amazon putting a chair in the room represents the customer. These guys go so much further. They employed students, put them into the marketing team to make sure that they always had a voice in every decision that was being made. And kind of it culminated just towards the end of last year that's Michael Arthur, the provost of UCL, who opened Astor College, which was helped to be designed by the students, and he actually gave awards and commendations to the students for the work they'd actually done on helping the accommodation team develop that. So that's it for me. I'd just like to leave you with 3 key points. Remember, customer experience is a forever strategy. The way in which organizations are behaving now will always be remembered. A customer experience is more inclusive than customers and employees. Always consider communities, societies, partners, value chain when you're making decisions. And customer experience will only survive if we raise the standards. They're not high enough at the moment. We need to raise them high so that we can actually have a credible place around the trading table in organizations. Thank you very much. Naeem, back over to you.
Thanks, Christopher. I mean, I think it's really good of you to get your Captain America suit on and climb up that building just for that picture. So, you know what you were talking about earlier, Chris, in terms of the role is to inspire. Can you just go back to that Spider-Man slide? I think it's to inspire. Let's just see what you said there. That one. So the role is to inspire, improve, and impact. And effectively, what you're saying here is, you know, our job as employees, customer-facing employees, isn't just to come in and get paid. It's to inspire, to improve, and impact. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. We can come in and we can transact, we can get the job done, and we can go home. But actually, if you can't leave, if you can't make people feel more fulfilled, if you can't make things better, then there's no point doing it. That customer experience will leave the situation in a better place than it was before. You kind of leave a legacy every time you make an improvement. And they're the standards we should work towards. That's why customer experience is so much a shared economy, because we can borrow ideas, trade ideas from different sectors, because at the end of the day, it all helps towards making lives better for customers. And if customers' lives are better, what we've actually seen is that it improves communities and improves society. So it has a really big opportunity, and it's a really shame when it's marginalized and it just focuses on, you know, increasing a satisfaction score or helping me get more of my customers for my own gain.